Welcome to Perspective with Kaylee Phillips, the safe space to get deep, break through, and find alignment. Here we prioritize wholehearted self-love, passion-driven careers, and living your absolute best life. You're here for a reason, so jump into the good energy, put your rose-colored glasses on, and tune in for massive impact and growth. I'm your host, KP, ready to release perfect and welcome perspective. Hi everyone, I am so excited to have Sam here today. Sam is literally incredible. I am obsessed with her. She is one of my former one-on-one clients and is a superstar online and such an icon. Thousands of people look up to her. So you are a social media manager and mentor, helping social media managers new, scaled, and somewhere in between achieve freelance freedom. You have almost 40K followers on Instagram. You are quite literally the superstar of personal branding, creating your own path, trusting your intuition as an entrepreneur. Could you please tell us all about your journey, who you are, and give us some inspiration with where you started, where you are now, and just give us the intro all about you?
I mean, for intros in general, I feel like you just gave me the best one I've ever had. I mean, I don't know how I'm supposed to top my own introduction. So thank you. Yes. So went through, I did the very like cookie cutter, went through college, I got a geography degree for God knows why. And then I became a history teacher. I moved to the Caribbean. I was just really looking, my early 20s, I was like, okay, I just need to find this like career safe job, do the thing, white picket fence, husband, kids, good, check, check, check. And I was like, oh, I should probably move to the Caribbean and get a teaching job. That really makes sense along this track, right? So I moved to the Caribbean and I loved teaching. I really did love it. It was so much fun. It was in a completely new culture, and I did love talking about, history, geography, those things. However, as most people know about teaching, it is not a job that pays incredibly well. And something that's not talked about very often with teaching in general is it's emotionally exhausting. It is a job where you are on a different level. And I was just burnt out in a completely different way, and I was incredibly broke. So moved back home in 2020. And then I just liked taking, just like everybody else, while everybody else was on the sourdough train, I was on the taking photos of food train. One thing led to another, and I was like, how can I don't like making recipes. How can I make this a full-time situation? And then I found social media management, and I just went all in. And I scaled over, past six figures in my first year, and I just went so hard and really I went so hard that I had to pull all the way back. And because I pulled all the way back, I was able to be like, you know what? Now that I've made all these mistakes and corrected them and made a better business for it, I want to help other people do that. And it's kind of brought this full circle teaching moment back. So essentially, I'm a teacher in a different way, and I absolutely, absolutely love it.
I admire your story so much because it's not perfectly linear. And I want to talk more about that pulled back moment because I think a lot of people that are on that middle part, the part where you move back home because you were broke and you realized the thing you went to school for wasn't the thing for life. And I think people, when you're in that pulled back moment, it's hard to trust that good things are going to come and trust that it's all going to work out for you. So I would love to hear more from you on like what those ups and downs felt like and where there were opportunities for you to learn during that. I mean, how did you trust that it was going to keep going and growing and trust that you would end up in this amazing place that you are? Or did you not? Did you have fears? Like, what was that like?
I really, especially moving forward as a mentor and a coach, I really like to stay away from the fake it till you make it energy. But I would be lying if I said I didn't have a dash of that, especially in this transition from being a teacher to going into now like a social media marketing business. And a business owner for the first time, honestly, was the most challenging part. Of course, learning a whole different skill with social media, content marketing, all those different things that come with social media management here. That's one new venture. But being a business owner, those are things I had not a clue. My entire family is teachers, like on both sides. I am a multi-generational teacher person. I was like, it is. But as far as, really staying inspired and staying driven to the fact that like this is going to work out is, for lack of a better word, I got myself out of my own victim mentality. When I first, came back home after 2020, I was like, I'm $35,000 in student debt for this stupid geography degree. Why do I have this? And I'm gonna be broke my whole life. And da da da. I'm like, and honestly, these kind of feelings of like, especially I feel like as a woman, you're like, okay, well, I guess I'll just find a rich husband and then you'll do these things. And then I really just got out of my own head and I'm like, no, like this is not the way I'm gonna live my life. It's just blaming everything else. And I just really once I did that, I was like, I want to make this work no matter what. I was like, I'm gonna figure this out. And I think really getting into that mindset of it's not everybody else, it's me it's a harsh reality, but it's something that has allowed me to succeed even when I had those toxic clients, even when I wasn't the best at the things I was doing. I was like, okay, well, I got to make it work somehow. And
Yeah.
that's truly how I made it happen, honestly.
Yeah. Oh my God. So many gems in everything you just said. First of all, be the rich husband. Like, yes. Like, why not? I think the whole conversation of why not me versus why me, in the sense of like, why not me? Why can't I be the millionaire? Why can't I be the one making all the money? Why can't I do all these incredible things? Versus, oh, why me? Like victim mentality. Why did this happen to me? Why did I make these mistakes? Why are these things happening? And like, instead of for me, happening to me. And whether that's in a spiritual sense of like trusting the universe or in a mindset sense of I'm going to start trusting myself, wherever you want to take that energy, the trust is such a huge factor. And getting away out of that victim mentality is the keystone to getting in there. I would love to also hear more from you on like the difference between working hard and working smart, because I feel like you're obviously doing something right. Like you are viral, all your videos are going viral. I'm always engaging on your content. Like I'm not even in this social media world, but I'm like, ooh, maybe I'll join the loop. Like I'm obsessed with it. The energy is there and you're doing something right, but you're not burned out. You're enjoying your life. I mean, I also see all your videos of you like chilling in the pool, going on day trips, and I would love to hear for our listeners, where is that difference between working hard to get to where you want to be versus working smart and enjoying the process?
That's a really, really good question. And I would love to know your answer on this afterwards as well, because I think everyone we play a certain role online. And yes, while I am sitting in my blow up inflatable pool in my backyard for 45 minutes a day, I am also getting up at 5 a.m. and then I'm checking my emails by 6. And I would love to be able to get on here and tell you that I have the perfect time management schedule down. I have the perfect work life balance. And that is just truly not the case. I got so close to burnout so many times because especially in building a business for the first time, not only are you building a business, but you're also learning how to do the thing. So it's essentially like for anyone who has ever stepped into like a college space or anything, going to college and then working at the same time, it's like two different sides of the brain that it's quite literally so exhausting no matter how much time you're putting into it. But going back to your question is it's always a learning curve and it's always the basically the muscle that I'm constantly training for myself is okay, like how do I being able to take a step back and knowing that things are not going to crumble overnight, things are not going to be set on fire if I take a day off. That has been the most valuable mindset shift for me in working hard and working smart because I do both. I really do both, and I do have 10-hour work days sometimes, and I also have 4-hour work days sometimes. And I think just being able to, for lack of a better word, breathe and know that it's going to be okay, no matter what kind of work day I have. Because like right now I am in a launch for my new membership and I am working way longer days than I typically do. But I know that's because I'm in this period, right? I'm in this period of working hard where next week I might be working smart because I'm out of the launch. I just think recognizing your phases as well is super, super important as a business owner, and as someone who's building something because there are going to be busier times than others, and it doesn't mean that you're stuck in them. Does that make
Yes.
sense?
Yes, 100%. And I think from my perspective on it, like leading with the intuition is so huge because I think sometimes there's a phase where you're like, I feel like I should be doing something, but I don't know what it is. So then you just start doing random things, like throwing up a post that like really isn't aligned with what's going on in your world and just like working all day, but like what tasks are we actually doing just to feel
Right.
like you've done something? So I always say, like when you have an intuitive pull, there's no other choice but to act on it. Like you are so in tune with the loop in this launch and most of the recent launches I've seen you do so it's like inevitable. Like yeah, I'm going to sit and work for long stretches because I'm so inspired by it and I feel so lit up by doing this and pursuing this. But when there's a side of you that's like I hate what I'm doing. This doesn't feel good. Then that's where you're like on that edge of burnout. So I think it's important that you've been on that like precipice of burnout because now you know what that's like and you've learned from that. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I feel like you and our personalities are so similar in so many different ways. I feel like think about, like a project. There's so many, I mean, everyone has different forms of hobbies and projects, but think about like if you're like, okay, I really want to learn how to crochet. Like, okay, like crocheting is my thing. We'll spend entire weekends on it. We'll spend, 8, 10 plus days. I'm on Pinterest. I'm going to Michael's. I'm going to do these different things. And I think when you like your business, you see these things as projects. Like the loop, this launch has been like a fun project for me because I'm like,
Yes.
ooh, like exciting. Do I love writing the emails? Like, no, that might be the like learning part of the crocheting. That's like, okay, it's part of it. But like I get to do these other things. That's part of
Yeah.
my project. And I know, I mean, I see how much you love your business too, and how much you pour into it. And I think it's like kind of what you were just saying and piggybacking off of that is when you like it, it's those hours don't feel as strenuous, I guess, or they don't feel as like you don't feel like you're pushing burnout as hard when you genuinely learn to like it and build the skills to like it too.
Yes, yes, mental skills and like literal tangible skills. I love that so much. I want to hear more from you. So, as you know, with Five to Thrive, one of the elements is passion, and we're talking a lot about finding your passion and then pursuing it and staying in love with your passion. Because I've seen a lot of people go down that road where you're like, oh, yeah, I want to pursue social media management. And then you get so hard on yourself, you get so attached to the results that you end up creating this resistance to it, right? So I would love to hear from you how you, number one, keep the peace on this journey and keep the peace with everything you're doing and not get too hard on yourself.
Tricky to answer this question because I feel like social media managers, and I've worked with so many of them, especially in my coaching experience now, and I see so many similarities and personalities across the board with social media managers is we have shiny object syndrome. And instead of, I think trying to block that out or ignore it, I think embracing it is so key. Embracing it strategically though, because, it's one thing if you wake up, you're like, I want to be a social media manager. And by the way, I have done all these things where there's so many ways to make money online now. And I think when we see, oh, I should do UGC. Oh, I should do drop shipping. Oh my gosh, you know what? I should probably be a copywriter. That makes sense for me. I think when we can get out of our own heads and play around with all these different things, but really find one that we are drawn to, leaning into that and staying leaned into it. I was actually just having a conversation about this topic with one of my students and I was like, what if you just did this one thing all the way through? Because she said something, she's like, I always get to a certain point of like being mediocre at something and then going on to something else. And like, what if you just did this one thing all the way through and you could see the fruits of your labor for it? Because that is so my personality type too. I'll crochet for a day and it'll be in my garage for the rest of my life. Like I'll start gardening and then there'll be just dead plants in my yard. Like, what if you just did this one thing all the way through? What if you put your head down for 6 months and built your brand and then you had this thing forever? What if so it's really that's my system. It's
Yeah.
not like a really complex, philosophy or anything, but it's like, what if you just did this one thing? Like, and then from there you can evolve with it because no social media management, and I'm sure even in your coaching business, like you are able to evolve when you build something up and out. If you build a personal brand, if you build an audience, if I don't really want to do done for you social media management anymore, I can lean into coaching, or I can lean into strategy, or I can lean into all these different things. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with evolving, but I think it's also knowing when it's time to evolve is a really, really hard skill to like stay on the straight and narrow with.
Yes. No, that's so important. And I think it might sound simple, but it is kind of a big mind blower because if you could say, okay, this is definitely going to work out for me. Like if I pursue this, it will definitely work. My success is inevitable because I'm deciding that's the case and I create my own reality. What if you just see it through? What could happen? And there's the negative what ifs of what if I devote all this time to it and it doesn't work out? What if I work on this for 2 years and I don't make a dime? Sure, we can think that way all we want, and that will only drive us away from staying on our passion line. Or we could say, what if it all works out? What if it comes faster to me than I could imagine? What if I really just let myself enjoy the process of today, enjoy the process of creating? There's just that mindset shift of what if, and letting yourself, giving yourself permission to see it all the way through is such a gift because then there's the version of you that quits and then we never know what could have been, or
Exactly.
we go all the way through and we get to literally see what could be. And since we are the creators of our own reality and we literally create things out of thin air, we can do whatever we want. And over here, we believe, like, if you believe you can do it, then absolutely you can. And it really all does start there. So I really love that. And it is so inspiring to hear from you too, because when we first met, I think you weren't that big, right? I mean, you were like amazing still because your talent's always been there, but I think you had like, I don't know, like 3,000, 4,000 followers maybe on Instagram, and you were like in that phase of right before blowing up. And then I remember DMing you and being like, "Oh my God, you're blowing up. Last time I looked at your profile, it wasn't like this." And it just happened. And I know that's a conversation for you too of it doesn't just happen overnight. It's a constant work in progress, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think that I was thinking about it. I was like, I honestly think that you were right because I always talk about I was like my whole thing is like I posted 190 reels with no one
Yes.
paying attention to me until someone paid attention to me. And I think you and I started working together probably about like reel 189. I think honestly, like you were in such a pivotal part of my business for me, and like really, I think it was the first time I was running a group program and doing all these like really, like
Mhm.
landmark big things for my business. And I think um mindset is so important in those times too. And like for you, I mean, I was dealing with so much imposter syndrome. I was dealing with so much just like, oh my God, I was dealing with hate comments for the first time. I was dealing with so much overwhelming emotions, and have for one, having your guidance through it was such a life-changing part of my business for sure. Um, but yeah, I'm sorry. I'm like, what was the question? I could go on and talk about how amazing you are all day long because it really was such a I was navigating I felt so alone in navigating that like blow up explosion with my business, and like then also people are like paying me money to help them, like this is this is a lot of responsibility and a lot of pressure, and so having you through that was so incredible. But yeah, I'm not really sure what the question was, but I keep going on that.
Literally me. My tangents can go in so many different directions,
Okay.
but no, everything you said was great. I was just exactly what you were saying, just saying like it took so much work, and I think people look at you where you are now and compare like that and say, oh, why is it so easy? She just got all those followers, a reel blew up, and it's just so easy, and why can't it be like that for me? But no, it took a lot of work, and it wasn't like you blew up overnight. I mean, yes, a video does like it does blow up in a day, but it was constant work of diligence and devotion to the project and showing up even when you weren't sure if you were doing the right things, just like doing it, putting yourself out there is something I say so much to the beginners. Like if you could go back and speak to your beginner self and just say, trust the process, it's working, it's going to be good for you, it's going to work out. You know what I mean?
No, exactly. And I think that I love the fact that I didn't blow up overnight. I mean, as much as I wanted to, don't get me wrong. But kind of the same thing we were talking about earlier is like sticking to one thing was such a challenge for me. And I think it is a personality type thing. I wanted to be a food blogger, but I didn't like building recipes. Okay, well, I'm not gonna do that. I wanted to do UGC because I like creating food content. Okay, whatever here. I would like start these pages and I would start and try and build them out, and then I would just be like, okay, I'm tired. And then I was like, okay, I built up this, successful social media management business, but I hadn't spent any time marketing it and being able to really, because I decided I was like, okay, the agency isn't for me. I want to diversify into coaching, digital products and things. Anyways, I was
Mhm.
like, what if I just did this one thing all the way through? What if I saw this one thing all the way through? If this is the only thing I see through in my whole life, what if I just do this thing and then I have it forever? And I did. And it was the most excruciating 5 months. I was like, I am putting myself out here. I'm being so cringe. I felt, discouraged all the time. Every single day I was like, oh man, I really should delete this. This is not really working the way I wanted it to. Then comes September of 2023, and it just all of a sudden, it wasn't like it all of a sudden seemed worth it because in 2023, when it blew up, I wasn't sleeping anymore because for 2 weeks when my all my videos were blowing up, I was like, oh my gosh, there's people. I'm like, am I a scam? Am I this? It's not like all of a sudden I'm like hanging out with Jennifer Lopez and I'm and I'm like, woo, making a bunch of money either. So it really was so discouraging and then so overwhelming, and then it was great, but then it's been great ever since. And so I guess really being committing to the crickets, I feel like that could be a good slogan,
Yes, I
is
love that.
so real. And it's almost one of those things that you can't, you almost want to like shake people and be like, please listen to me, please, please, please. Like I have people from my programs now being like, okay, you were right. And I'm like, I know, please just listen.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So many big takes here. First of all, you need to copyright that phrase because that is a golden one. I love that. Um Also, I think a lot of people, again, when they're glamorizing the success and looking up to people and saying, "Oh, it gets to be so easy for them," da da da. I think it's easy to forget that even at this place now, you still have mindset blocks. You still have, like, it's not like everything was perfect once you blew up. Everything, like, all the problems go away and now you're famous and it's fine and it's all good. And I'm working on being a lot more vulnerable here and not just showing up like, yep, we have everything together, so listen to the podcast because we have all the answers. I would love to hear from you if you're open to sharing. Like, what are some of the mindset blocks that you still experience now to kind of give some validation and comfort to the people that are listening and looking up to us so that they can know, like, it's always there's always growth to happen. There's always more to learn, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I can go in a couple different directions with this, but when I think about, vulnerability, that's something that I when I had other accounts, whether they're personal accounts or whatever, I was definitely in my younger years a chronic oversharer. And I would talk about my ex-boyfriends and how they were stupid and all these different things. And then so, moving into a personal brand that was a business, I'm like, oh, I don't have to do any of that. Like I could be married tomorrow and no one's gonna care. But I think vulnerability, especially as I'm really building this community and people are a part of it, not only because they want to be social media managers, but because they're here for me and they resonate with me, is how much of my life do I share and how much do I, be vulnerable with them. And I've had this thing in the back of my mind that I've talked to with my friends that I'm like, oh, I think I'm launch cursed. Something bad in my life, in my personal life, always happens every time I launch something. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna write an email about it. I was like, I was like, we'll see. Let's test the waters. And I basically was like, my on my first launch ever, my mom got diagnosed with breast cancer. I was like, oh, and then like I'm going through these lists of things, and it's like my mom's great, by the way. She's fine,
Oh,
but
good. I
like
was gonna ask.
she's fine. But thank God. But then I was, I am. You do go through so many things in your personal life that people don't see, and I think finding a really authentic and genuine way to share from scars and not wounds on
Mhm.
a business page is so vital, because I think you want your audience to resonate with you, but I don't think you want your audience to be like, oh, she's not ready to talk
Yeah.
about that yet.
Uh,
So I think that's something that I'm still learning, honestly. And
uh,
I've learned, I feel like you're so vulnerable and you're so real, but at the same time, like I think you have a perfect balance of sharing your personal. So I'd love to know what you think about that, actually.
I would definitely say, I mean, you've heard this a bunch of times from working together, but alignment is not a final destination, it's a constant tool. So when I am coming on to share something vulnerable, it's a place of, yes, I'm experiencing this and I have the tools to handle it, like the mindset work, the alignment work, the self-awareness, the emotional intelligence, all of those tools help us be able to navigate it more. So whenever I am coming in on that place of vulnerability, whether it's like in a TikTok video or an email or here on the podcast, it's this is what I'm going through and I'm open to share it with you because I'm also saying if you're having this, I'm here to help you work through it. And like even if I'm actively working through it, it's like that's where my solutions come in. Like that's literally what I do. So I think it's just so important because something I want us all to do, myself included, is take people off of the pedestals. Because law of one says we are all equal. And if you're living this life thinking like, oh yeah, the Kardashians have this much money because they're better people, like they were born up here and I am down here on this step and I can never equate because we're not equal. That's just crazy. Like we are all, when it comes down to it, strip away all the things, we're all human. Do you know what I mean? So
Right.
yeah, I think being vulnerable in that place of I have mindset blocks, I have low days just as you do. I had low days when I first started my business. I'm going to have low days when I'm a multimillionaire. We all do, you know what I mean? And the way we navigate it is the beauty of it, which kind of reminds me I also wanted to ask you about the process of like integrating your self-care and taking care of yourself as the person behind the business, whether you're working towards personal goals like a fitness goal or like literally any goal that you're working on, it's so easy to hyperfixate on it, especially the ADHD mind of being like, this is what I'm working on, this is my project, and it's all you can think about. But that separation is so essential to take care of yourself. So I'd love to ask you about how you found that place of literally taking care of the human being behind your business.
Ooh, my God. I think I'm very much a phases person, and I think my what self-care looks like to me ebbs and flows. I think sometimes it looks like I'm going to get facials and massages, and then I'm like, okay, my self-care doesn't have to be that expensive. And then other times it's like, no, I'm actually taking the time to make myself lunch. So I think that, and I'm also someone who routine is great, but I like to, I get bored with it. So I think, self-care one week, I mean, there was one week I haven't been in the pool the past 2 weeks, but that one week I was supposed to go be in my inflatable pool. I think just the way my mind works now, um, in working from home, it's like I've built up this like accountability to myself to work from home, but I've also now built up this like muscle of accountability to like let myself eat more than an iced coffee, or I've let myself make sure that I move my body. Like my walking pad is my best friend when it comes to my everyday. I think self-care doesn't have to be facials and massages and gua sha and blah, 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 and red light therapy and all these things. Well, those are great, and I still do those things. Self-care is eating. Self-care
Yep.
is if you're into reading, like making sure you prioritize time for those things. I think a lot of people think that the idea of self-care has to be like, I make 10K a month so I can afford self-care. And it's like, no, self-care is quite literally taking a nap. Like, please take a nap. Like it's so I think that my view on self-care evolves, but it can be as simple as a peanut butter and jelly sandwich
Yep.
when you're
Yeah.
busy.
Yeah, this is everything. Like, self-care is not a luxury. That's
Mhm.
just ridiculous. Everyone should be practicing self-care as a bottom line, but that's exactly it. Self-care does not have to mean the bubble bath. I think self-care can also just be like, I'm going to set a boundary today. It's literally just taking care of yourself. And I always say everything you do can be an act of self-care. You going through this launch is an act of self-care because it's pursuing the vision, it's pursuing the dream, it's doing something for your future self. Or you could choose to view it as an act of self-hatred and you're like, I hate this launch, this is awful, I'm forcing myself to do all this email work, like it's all about that perspective shift. But I love that.
Hey, you know what I also think is a form of self-care, and you are someone who has helped me through this too, is figuring out what's going on with your body and really prioritizing it and not just existing in it. Like for someone I've dealt with like IBS since I was 15, and when I was really really struggling earlier this year, and like you and I were messaging, and it's like you could have very easily dealt with the symptoms you're experiencing, even whether they are extreme or not. You had a business to run, so you're like, you know what, yeah, like I can, my stomach is so bloated every single day and I can't deal with it. But I have a business to run. But no, you're like, no, I need to prioritize feeling better. So the rest of the things in my life can be better too. And I think that's a form of self-care. And so
Yeah.
being gluten-free is self-care for us at this point.
We could do a whole episode on tummy trouble.
Oh, yeah, but I think that like I could have very easily just like, okay, I guess I'll just be going back and forth to the bathroom during my business. But no, I'm like, no, I want my quality of life to be better. So I went and went to the doctors. That's self-care. Like I just think self-care can be so many different things.
Yeah, Sam, there was literally a period of my business where I was like, I don't think I can do live calls anymore because I can't, like, my stomach can't handle it. And that was kind of the breaking point where I was like, okay, something might be wrong. Because, like, what? And I think the gut health conversation is so important. And for my personal journey, I feel like we were both on that journey. Why are we so aligned in our journeys? We like go through the same.
It's yeah, we gravitated towards each other. The universe brought us together.
I love that so much. When is the universe going to bring us together in person, though? That's what I would like to know.
That is, that our guts are feeling better. We're ready to travel, but I feel like it's the next step. It has to be.
For me, with the the gut health and that healing journey, I did a whole episode on this, but I was struggling so much with body image and like what I was putting into my body and healing my nourishment. And I was like doing all the fitness journeys, but nothing was happening. Like my body wasn't changing.
Mhm.
I was getting so frustrated. So then I started leaning into like the manifestation side of it and saying, okay, I want to manifest building muscle. I want to manifest feeling good in my body, feeling good in my skin. And then that's when I got that diagnosis and had to go through all those tests. And getting diagnosed with Crohn's forced me to take care of my body. Like, okay, you have no choice now because there is a literal reason to heal your gut, not just like, oh, it's a trend to heal your gut and drink Bloom in the morning. No, it's like you actually need to make a huge change in your life. And I feel like sometimes these avenues can be forced. Like I think with both of us, it's like, yep, you have a literal reason. The universe is going to put this right in front of you. You have a reason to be forced to fill your own cup and take care of yourself. And then once that happened, it's like, oh, okay. And business feels easier now. And like going out with friends feels easier now. And I don't feel so anxious all the time. And like all of these other symptoms just naturally healed because of that. So I think sometimes my point in saying this is not only talking about tummy troubles, but in life with like the toxic client, with the failed business attempt. Like sometimes the universe gives us these opportunities to teach us a lesson, to redirect us down where we're meant to be. And if this didn't happen, then the good things wouldn't happen. If this bad part didn't happen, then I wouldn't have been directed down the good path. You know what I mean?
No, I'm so glad that you said that in that way because that is one thing that I'm so passionate about is like the way you just explained gut health is the same way I talk about business. Is like having gut issues forces you to take care of yourself the same way building a business it forces you to learn yourself and forces you to understand your personality. And honestly, is like there's something about like I'd rather not have gut health issues, but I'm so on a certain level I am so glad that I do because it forces me to take care of myself. And like there's some days where I'm like, God, I just wish I had a W-2 job that would pay me this much. But then I'm like, no, I'm so grateful that I decided to build a business because if I didn't decide to build a business, there's no way I would have ever hired you. There's no way I would have ever started tapping into like any kind of spiritual side of myself or mindset or manifestation. Like I would have never felt like I was forced to do a deeper dive on like, how am I going to make this work? And how am I going to learn myself to make this work? So
Yeah.
like gut health and business are honestly great catalysts for really, really life-changing change.
Yes, I love this. And I think it comes up in mental health too. Like I always say my ADHD is a gift, and I used to be so like frustrated about it in school when I was trying to force like this strict schedule and strict curriculum of you have to do these certain assignments, and college was just not for me. Don't recommend for me personally. But now I see that ADHD as such a tool, and it helps me like strike into those passion projects and get those intuitive downloads and then build out a free masterclass in like a day. I remember you did the same thing. We both have done that where we build out a free masterclass in like a day or
Don't
two.
recommend, but yeah.
Don't recommend, but without my ADHD and like hyperfixation mindset, I wouldn't be able to. So I think it all supports me and who I'm meant to be. And it's so easy to just say, oh my God, I have so many problems. I have ADHD, I have Crohn's, I have so much to complain about, or see them as gifts and find the good in it. And that's just all up to perspective, you know?
Totally. And I think even like perspective and like you said, feeling finding the good in it, but also finding the humor in it too. That's something that's always helped me so much. It's like, oh, like finding humor in, then I feel like there'll be people be like, gut health is not funny. And it's like, no, it is. It's like we could have things could be way worse. Things could be better, but things could be way worse. And even with, I know like not all your listeners are trying to build a business, but it's like even in building a business or doing hard things, like there's a reason why people say the journey is half the fun or whatever the phrase
Yeah.
is. Like, yes, you're supposed to be able to laugh through it. You're supposed to be, being able to get on a call with your friend or, call with a different person in a business and be like, you're never going to believe what my client did.
Yes.
Like there's a joy in it. And if you can find humor in it too, and just literally be like, okay, this is not that serious. That is hilarious. Like I was on the toilet 14 times a day. That was so annoying. Like, like I think humor is such a way to deal with harder situations and make it more fun because it is what it is.
Yeah, and the point of life isn't the final destination. Like, no, I don't think the purpose of my life is get to a final destination where my stomach's all better. Like, it's definitely about the journey, oh my God, this is so cringe, but it is about the friendships we make along the way, you know?
There's a reason why these quotes are like they're so cringy, but it's like, enjoy the ride. It's like someone was up to something when they said that.
Yes. No,
At the end
it's
of the
so
day,
true.
yeah, I mean, I hate to get so morbid, but it's like if you have a tombstone, your tombstone is not going to read alignment coach. It's my tombstone's not going to read social media manager, mentor, or like your Instagram bio is not going to be your headstone. So it's like enjoy the people, enjoy like these are real people you're talking to. These are real people you're working with. And I just think if we're able to get out of the such serious nature of
Yeah.
gut health and business and all these things, we'll just be able to enjoy life so much more.
Yeah. And oh my gosh, this is so good because I think it ties right back into that self-care conversation of no, self-care for me doesn't have to be like reading a self-help book. And for you, it doesn't have to be doing skincare while also making a vlog. Like
Mhm.
it's sometimes literally just watching a stupid movie or just doing something completely unrelated to the hustle and the business and all the things that quote matter because what really matters is your happiness. So sometimes it's just taking that step back and that is so important because it's literally not that serious, like it's not that deep. And I always often say this is also like a morbid one, but I'm glad you brought up your tombstone one. So if you had 3 days to live, would you spend it like fully focused on your launch and doing nothing else? No, like you would get out there and do the things, you know?
No, exactly. And I think honestly, that's a great way to think about carving out time for yourself. I think sometimes even in the world when you're so deep in the online space, like I think both of us really are, is we see, so many different self-care things and it's like, okay, my time for me should be, sitting with the red light and dry brushing and blah blah blah. And I think that like carving out time for yourself, if you can think about it, like, okay, you have 3 days to live. Like, what in this next? Imagine that in this next hour, you have 3 days to live. What are you gonna do? Are you gonna dry brush? Are you gonna, or are you gonna jam out to Nickelback in your garage, which is like something I would do. But like, it's like, or are you going to go and have brunch with your girlfriends, or are you gonna go crochet? It's like I feel like we try we even like in our self care or our time for ourselves we're doing things that are trying to be productive and bettering ourselves, which is great. But there needs to be time, like go listen to a trash podcast, go watch Jersey Shore. There is times and place for that. I feel like I'm gonna take that moving forward and be like, okay, I have 3 days to live. What am I gonna do with this hour? Like I'm not gonna gua sha my face right now. I'm gonna go do these things.
Yeah. Unless that is really going to bring you fulfillment. Like if the gua sha is
Exactly.
really going to make you happy and make you feel great. I say everything we do lead with happiness. Like even each day, if you can just choose a word, today I'm going to lead with what makes me happy, then that's what your day is. And if the day is, like you said, going through phases, if the day is today I'm going to lead with what brings more money to me, brings more abundance to me, then that's your intention. But being so intentional, we've talked about this a lot, the segment intending. Like as you go into each phase of your day, saying, what's my intention right now? What do I want to feel right now? Why am I doing this? I think it just gets you out of that place of doing the quote self care because that's what all the it girlies are doing and that's what's trending versus doing it because that's for you. Like if no one was ever watching, what is your self care right now?
I think that too, I feel, and I know this isn't really like on the topic of content, but I do think that has been, from I guess you say from a strategic point of view, but that has actually been what I think has been able to set certain pieces of my content apart from those kind of, the norm of content is like I will post myself dancing to Nickelback in the garage. And I think for a lot of people be like, oh, what is she doing? But I think for the other half of people, it's like, okay, see, like that's what I would be doing instead of, you know, going on the elliptical. I don't know, like going on doing something. I
Yeah.
think that's productive. I think that like being real and true to yourself and like showing people that side of you can be a version of vulnerability. Me like chugging celery juice, like I looked ridiculous, but that was something that people liked more than any of my other social media management content. They're like, "Where's the celery juice?" I think those
Agree.
types of things is a certain yeah, like it's a certain vulnerability that's not like sharing all of your personal wounds, but it's like, yeah, this is what I actually do in my life. Like I'm not actually being productive every second of the day, and that's so real too.
Yeah, I literally remember looking forward to your celery chugs on your stories.
And then one thing led to another, and my doctor was like, "That's not gonna do so well for your gut."
Same.
So
And then I started doing them and I was like, okay, I'm gonna jump on your bandwagon here. And then I was like, oh wait, no, this is not good.
yeah, building a brand off of bad gut health practice, but that's okay.
I love it. But seriously, if everyone loves your content, if everyone out there loves your content, we're doing something wrong because then it's just too basic, it's too blanket. It needs to be sometimes a hot take, sometimes really, really niche stuff like listening to Nickelback in your garage. Like that is going to bring in the people that say 100% yes, I love your energy, I want to work with you, I want to be in your space. And I think that just applies to everything. When you're fully in your authentic self, that's how you attract the right environments, the right people into your life, the right relationships, when you're truly letting yourself be authentic. And the only thing that can block you from bringing in all the best opportunities and bringing in the best people is not being your authentic self. It's such a big wall, you know? It's a huge wall.
How have you navigated that? Because I think, my having like spicier content, like hot take content, was something that I really shy away from a really long time because I didn't want to deal with, the I think that's even something that we worked on together at a
Mhm.
certain point was like I don't really want to say how I truly felt about certain things. I didn't want to talk about any downsides to social media management or anything like that, in fear of those things. And I'm so curious how you have embraced that and gotten over that block. And just like, I'm just gonna be myself and like not everyone's gonna like me and that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when I first hired my first coach and I was planning out my content and I was like, I have a really spicy piece of content coming up. And she was like, let me see. And I was like, I don't think I can post it. It was literally just like, it was literally nothing. It was like, you should be living in your passion. Like, that's literally all it was. But like, the thought of telling anyone what to do or like giving any form of like, not even hot take, just like take was very frightening to me. So that was a big journey to get comfy cozy and speaking my truth. Also, just realizing, like, I think this sounds pretty simple, but literally realizing that the more authentic I am, the happier I feel. This is something that my partner tells me all the time. She'll give me reminders like, can you be more authentic on your stories? Or like, I think your TikToks just need to be a little more you. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like, I'm putting too much of my like teacher voice on and my like, okay, my content needs to be perfect. And sometimes it's so much more enjoyable when it's just very real and very open. And I feel easier. I don't feel as like it eases my perfectionist tendencies to just let it be. And I feel happier. I feel more in tune with my content. I feel less comparison when I'm being authentic because there's nothing to compare to because I'm just being me. But when I'm trying to like be something, then I feel more overwhelmed by it. So that journey is really about, again, it's all about prioritizing my happiness and saying, okay, what's my intention here? Is my intention happiness and self-fulfillment? Okay, that means being my most authentic self.
No, I love that you said that because I think that's like even something that I'm learning to unlearn, but also know that it's a part of me too, because like that teacher voice, not only is it in my blood at this
Mhm.
point, like my whole family, but it's, in my career up until social media management, I feel like when I've created content so much too, and even just in the way I speak and coach and certain things like that, I think it's benefited me a lot. But I think, coming back to the roots of just being myself and not just being like, and today's lesson, we're going to be doing this. Like I think that's so natural for me. So really getting back to the roots of like you said, like just being like authentically you. Like you don't have to have like a whole lesson plan to like get your point across. Um, is so real, and it's something that I'm constantly working on too.
Yeah, it's a big one. Like I remember this is getting more into like the behind the scenes of my world, but we were on a strategy call with my like one of my content managers and we're like, okay, why did this TikTok get over 3 million views and this TikTok talking about the same exact topic got like 300 views? It's literally my voice. It's literally my presentation. In the viral one, I look at ease, I look chill, I am very comfortable. I actually just got out of a tummy trouble appointment. I just like set up my phone and was like, okay, I just got out of the doctor. Let me just like share what's on my mind right now. Felt very authentic after that appointment. And then the other ones is like, okay, let me try to make a viral video, and let me like try to
Right.
speak perfectly. And that's clearly the difference. When I am more comfortable and more myself, it attracts the right people, it attracts that aligned energy, and then it just all flows so much easier. We could literally talk for probably 7 hours about all of these things and go down a million different rabbit holes, but I want to play a game. I play a game with every single one of my guests, and I've been playing a different game so far with everyone. So today we're going to be playing What Would You Do? Have you ever watched that show? What Would You Do?
No.
It is so good. You just have to watch it on like TikTok. Like it's not like a sit down and like watch this show. It's just like John Quinones goes like into like real life situations. Like he'll go into like a coffee shop and set up a scene where like someone starts yelling at the employees and then it's like
Oh
what
yes,
are
yes,
these
yes.
people
Yeah.
do? Yeah. Okay.
Like
I love
if
that.
by himself, what would you do? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes, yeah. Anyway, it's not going to be that surreal, but I am going to give you situations like scenarios, nothing too crazy, but just so we can get a snippet into your beautiful mind. And this is just a fun way for us to see how you think, who you are, what your perspectives are. So, you ready?
ready.
Okay. So, what would you do, or I could say, what would you do differently, if anything, if you were back in your full-time job, like let's say you woke up and it was all a dream, and you woke up and you are in your teacher position, what would you do? Or what would you do differently, if anything? How would you act? What would you do?
What would I do? Honestly, this is coming from now 4 or 5 years later now in the like business monetization mindset where I'm like, I was literally 23 living in the most beautiful Caribbean island. I would have become a content creator and be like literally day in my life as a teacher in the Caribbean. I would have built up a whole different brand. I think my life was so much more interesting then. Like, I mean, it's just a different level of interesting. But honestly, that's what I would have done. I would have just monetized my life. I would, in a again in a more personal branding way. Like I was literally, yeah, I would teach the French Revolution, and then I would go on a boat and go look at the stars with my Caribbean friends, and like that's what I would do. I would have been a Caribbean influencer, if you want to call it that.
I love that. I love that so much. I would follow you for sure.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so now what would you do? Take yourself out of it. What
Okay.
would you do if you were just a person, or what would you say to a person who is in a full-time job right now? They're listening to this and they're in a full-time job and they're feeling a little pinch of like jealousy because they're like, I want to do all this. What would you tell them to do first? Like, what could I do first? Because I'm feeling like I'm in this full-time job. You guys are out here talking about like the past and all this success and stuff, but what can I do right now to make a difference in my life today?
I think gaining a certain, I don't know if I guess perspective would be the word, but I think there is a lot of conversation and a lot of misinformation online of like you can just wake up and do it. You can just wake up and do it. And I think that even sometimes, even when I say like, oh, I did this, I made this crazy business in a year, is like I even think that's a certain like distortion of the reality when it comes to business. And I think if you're in a job that you hate or that you don't like, or you are listening to this podcast and you're like, okay, I want that version of reality to be mine as well, is just knowing that the same way I couldn't wake up tomorrow and become a history teacher, I had to, I had to go get this geography degree or whatever I had to do. Is the same way you don't just wake up tomorrow and become a business owner. You don't just, Kaylee didn't just wake up and then was like, I'm an alignment coach now, and that's it. I'm done. And I
Yeah.
think that there's this kind of this overnight thing. I feel like we're transitioning out of it, but just knowing like start building skills. You want to be a social media manager? Great. Start learning how to build out social media strategy. Start learning how to create content. Just waking up and deciding like, ooh, I know how to use Instagram. I'm gonna quit my job. Like I think those kind of jerk reactions, and I am such an impulse person, and so I know that feeling. I know like I'm just gonna burn to the ground and let's start something new. I think having the perspective of like, okay, I'm gonna start this thing. Kind of the same thing we were talking about in the beginning.
Yeah.
Bring it all. It's like, what if you did this thing all the way through, but in a sustainable way? If you want to be a gymnast, great. You want to be a gymnast gonna make a bunch of money, great, perfect. Start going to tumbling classes. Start
Yes.
learning how to do a cartwheel before you do a backflip. And I think that like allow yourself to breathe and be slow. That's going to not only build a sustainable business and allow you to actually leave the job that you don't like, but it's also going to actually make you more money and build a business that you actually like, even if it takes you longer. That's
Yeah.
what I would say.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Okay. What would you do if you had no idea what your passion was?
Become a social media manager, because then you have honestly, because you have to do so many things at once. You're like, oh, I hate that, I hate that, I love that, I love that, and then you can specialize. No, I think if I didn't know what my passion was, oh, there's so many different ways you can go with that. I think for me, being someone who has had 700 different passions, I'm the person who changed my major 700 times and wasn't even quite sure what the one I ended up with. Like I think just learning is, I think so many people who become online business owners or even in any kind of space, whether in their early 20s, whatever, is like, I didn't like college. I don't like, I don't like school and things like that. And I actually had the opposite experience. I loved school. I just didn't love one thing. I loved so many different things. And I think the same way you approach different hobbies, approach different passions, approach different things. Like you can make money doing quite literally anything these days. So even if something just sticks out a little bit, lean into it. It's okay if you change it, but I think not putting ourselves out there and just like, okay, I saw this one thing, this I'll try this. Like poke around. I think no one's the race to success or the race to finding your passion. The only person putting pressure on that is you.
Yep.
No, you don't need to reach anything in the first year. You don't need to reach anything in the first 10 years. Like you're finding your passion, building, this level of success, doing anything, like take your time with it. Because
Yeah.
what's the point of investing $2,000 into pickleball equipment if you actually don't even like it?
Yeah.
So I think giving yourself time and putting yourself out there to like learn different things is what I would say.
Yeah, I love that answer. Learning is so valuable. And I still, even like as people that can say we have our passion, I still would love to like randomly go take a pottery class and like go learn about social media management. Like I would learn about all these different things just for the process of learning it, and not about like the end result. So I think that focus is so important too. Okay, this is my last one for you. What would you do if you had a yes week where you could literally do anything you want for a week? Anything you asked for, anything you wanted, yes. How would you spend your week?
I would go to every single one of my dream restaurants. Like I would just be a world ticket traveler. I would go to Mexico City, I would go to Lima. I would literally like trying different restaurants is my hobby. Like trying different food and be like, oh, that's amazing, or like, oh, that's really gross, is my favorite thing to do. So that's what I would do.
Oh my gosh, foodie at heart. I love that.
Mhm.
Oh, I love that so much. Okay, this was an amazing episode. This
Thank
is
you so much for having me.
Oh my God, of course. This is not going to be the last time that we're on here chatting together because we obviously have a zillion different rabbit holes to go down together. But I would love to hear, first of all, how can listeners connect with you after tuning in today? And also if you want to share a bit about the loop, because we mentioned it a few times, and if people want to hear about what it is, and just tell us how we can connect with you.
Yeah, so I mean, Instagram is going to be like my main section of the internet, Sam Schmidt Social. But I did just launch last week the Loop, which is a community collective membership, whatever kind of word you want to use. It is designed specifically for social media managers, whether you're just starting out, again, whether you're just trying to find that passion, you're in that messy middle that we talked about, or you're all the way scaled. Isolation and feeling confused and not validated and all those different really overwhelming experiences as a business owner can feel so lonely. And so I wanted to create a space that not only helped you educate yourself and learn and build those skills, like I said, like the building, having the perspective, building, learning how to do the backflips, you can do those inside the loop, but also having a community that we can bounce ideas off of and get a second pair of eyes on things is super invaluable and a low ticket price, which is like something that I think with coaching and certain things like that, you don't really see very often. So super passionate about it and just really excited for all the things to come inside the loop.
Oh my gosh, your passion is radiant. It's so clear. If there are any social media managers listening here, make sure you go join the loop because Sam is absolutely amazing. If you can leave our listeners with just one perspective shift to wrap up this episode and tell us how you've stayed in alignment on your journey, one perspective shift, one mindset tip, what would it be?
I always go back to I'm not a quotes person, believe it or not, even though we said a bunch of them today. But one of my favorite quotes ever that I use for everything is like I might butcher it, but it's like it's be messy and afraid and complicated and show up anyways. And it's like Glennon Doyle, I believe. But it's so real. It's like be all over the place, be a hot mess, do all the things, but like the fact that you're showing up is so incredible. There are so many people that don't do hard things, and like that's okay for them. But like the fact that you are doing hard things and the fact that you are choosing to do hard things, especially when it feels the hardest, that's the time to show up. And that's the time to like be afraid, be scared, be like, oh my God, this is crazy, and do it anyways.
Yep, commit to the crickets. I love it.
Commit to the crickets. Yes.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being here today. You are amazing, and I'm so excited for everyone to get to listen to this episode. Make sure you go connect with Sam on Instagram, and I'll talk to you guys next time.
Thank you.